So, again, really just kind of getting into this. Would appreciate, taking the time out to come and see this. I want to try to make this as conversational as possible. I don't want to sit here and just kind of talk at you guys and all that stuff. I'm giving you KOR stuff, and it's a lot of kind of information of how to build your schemes, some different drills, types of blocks, and stuff like that. I didn't want to go like straight X's and O's and all this stuff. I want to try to give some stuff that, you guys can incorporate into your scheme or your daily, weekly game plan, whatever you're doing. So that's kind of my goal of what I'm doing here. My contact info is on here. So at Coach Frantz is my Twitter, and then my email down the bottom. Anybody has any questions, DM me, email me, whatever you want to do. I'm all for talking ball and doing all that stuff. I kind of missed this part of it, getting in the room with other coaches and stuff. We're still on quarantine, not in the office and all that. So we haven't really had that in the office talking ball type of situation. But again, I'm looking forward to doing this. So I'll get it rolling here. So just overall kind of philosophy on my coaching, and then really just special teams as a whole is, you want to keep it simple and keep it sound, using the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. Especially here at Lafayette, we're limited roster. I know some programs have less than we do, but we're limited to a max of 90. We generally carry a little bit under that. It makes it really difficult on away games. So Patriot League rule for away games is you can only travel 60. So traveling 60 guys, you have one guy get hurt, two guys get hurt, they play the same position on punt team, you're screwed. You're scrambling looking for a guy who hasn't played that position because you don't travel your threes. It's really tough to do that. So keeping it as simple and as sound as possible, and really just trying to develop as many foundational rules that are easy to understand but take care of the all-encompassing looks that you may get. I know that's kind of cliche, but being able to keep it simple for the kids and have it answer every single question that they may see. I'm a big proponent on fundamentals and football IQ on special teams. I think it's the players that are just the best overall football players. It may not be that kid who runs the fastest. It may not be that kid who is the strongest in the weight room or is the freakish athlete. It's just the kid who understands space, understands leverage, knows where the ball is going to be, has a good football savviness, football IQ, understands the situation. So for me, those are the best special teams players. A lot of times that ends up being some of your best players. But again, just those guys that understand the game of football as a whole. They're not just locked into being a linebacker. They're locked into knowing the entire game. They understand every little facet, and they have very strong fundamentals. Those are the guys that are going to be successful special teams players, because special teams are messy. They hardly ever go off as planned. You don't get the time to script out your plays and know exactly what look you're going to get. It's really tough. You have to have guys that understand football, can think on the fly, and can cover their teammates' ass. It's those guys that are able to just be savvy and make plays when things hit the fan, because it's going to happen, and it happens a lot on special teams. It's very, very rare for everything to work out exactly how it's supposed to work. It gets messy. People are tripping over each other, and you just got to figure it out. So having the guys that understand football and have that savviness and that football IQ with strong fundamentals those are the guys that I love putting on these units. Just from a mantra standpoint, so my kind of thing for special teams is live in the more. I do an exercise every single year whenever it's fall camp, spring football. The first thing I do is I ask all the guys to just raise their hand up as high as they can. And I ask them to go higher. And every single guy in the room goes another 2 inches higher, because they thought they were going as high as they could. And then you ask for more, and they give it to you. So I always talk about living in the more, especially on special teams. You have to give that extra effort. You have to give the extra physicality, the extra violence, the extra everything, because, again, it's not going to go according to plan. So we talk about living in the more as our mantra. And then just kind of the other two, a savage mentality and being notorious. So notorious obviously has a heavy and a strong word of, infamous. You have a name to yourself. You are potentially feared. We want to be feared. We want to make guys scared. We want our name to carry. So as soon as that opponent lines up, or as they're breaking down the film from a coaching staff, they're saying, damn, these guys are good. Other coaches are talking to each other. Have you played those guys yet? They've run. They hit the shit out of you. And those two go together, from being just the savage mentality, just the mindset of aggression first. Aggression and violence, speed, physicality, all of those things. And I want to design the special teams to allow our guys to be as savage as possible by keeping the rules simple and allowing them to just play. Go let loose and be the player that you recruited. If you make them think and you slow them down and you give them all of these rules, they're losing speed, they're losing physicality, and it's just not what you want. I'd rather take someone who's going to be a little bit more aggressive, someone who's going to hit the shit out of someone, rather than a guy who's going to think and be a little bit slower. So I'd rather take the savage guy who's just going to crush everyone and put him on the field. You can make his rules simple. You can put him in a position to succeed. The guy who thinks, he's going to get you beat. So that's just another mantra and kind of coaching philosophy that I have going through the coaching career so far. Getting into specific kickoff return stuff, creating the game plan. First of all is, who are we? You guys just heard me talk about keeping it simple. It's, who are the players? What do we do best? And that's what we're going to do. At the end of the day, I don't care if you know what we're doing. I don't care if you know where the return's going. You still need to stop. We're going to execute our job. We're going to do our job to the best of our ability. So no matter what you do, as long as we do our job, you can't stop us. So we're always going to stay true to who we are. What we are on kickoff return is we are a sideline return team. We will flip it, kick side and backside, or front side and backside, however you want to call it. We don't care that we have a front side and a backside. We do have a counter that comes back off of it. So if you do overplay, it's going to look exactly like our sideline return, and we'll just bring a counter back the other way, and we'll keep you honest that way. But again, anyone who plays us, they know we're a sideline return team. And that's kind of it. We don't care. We're going to run it, we're going to execute it, and we're going to be better at our fundamentals than you are on the kickoff game. So getting into the game plan portion of it, the first thing is you look at the kick. How deep is it going? What's the height? Where are they kicking? A lot of times I think height is kind of underlooked in this capacity of it. Obviously, if the kid's kicking it into the end zone, everyone's like, all right, we're getting touchbacks. But if it's a low line drive into the end zone, it's a 3-6 hang time, and it's 2 yards deep in the end zone, you can still return that and get a really good return, because those guys running down that kickoff team, what we talk about is we want to be inside that 30-yard line when the ball is caught. If you're having 3-5 hang time, those guys are not getting down the field. They're not going to be inside that 30-yard line. So as that ball is caught, you still have 30 yards to work with before you start getting guys into what the kickoff team may call the war zone, or the tackle zone, or whatever it may be. So height, I think, is absolutely critical. Obviously, depth going into the end zone, short of the end zone, all of that stuff is big. And then location. Are they putting it in the middle of the field? If they put it in the middle of the field, they give you a two-way go, or they pin you down in the corner. Where do they want to put the ball? What are they trying to do? Do they flip hashes and all of that? Just looking at that and getting an idea of where it's going to go, what type of kick, so that you have an idea of what you're going to see. And then looking at their scheme, who are their flyers, who are their contained players, who are those safety fit guys? Do they twist? Is it a true twist, or are they two guys playing off of each other with a penetrator and a guy that plays off and he goes opposite? Looking at the scheme and trying to figure that out. Then the one-on-one matchups, the dogs and the fish. Who are their dudes? Who are the guys that you have to shut down on the unit? Put your best guys on there. Create the best angles for that guy. Who are the fish? The guys that are taking it easy. The guys that don't really want to be physical, that don't really want to run down. It's like an offensive play. Return it at that guy. That's where you want to take it to. So finding the dogs and the fish inside of their scheme. So getting into kind of just how I label the different blocks. On the front side, we have our double team, and then we have what I call a trap block. On the back side, we have our backside cutoff, and then our back end is really just a kick out. I've done a lot of different schemes, a lot of different tweaking. We can keep talking about some of the other things that I've done, but like what we have right now is we have a double team, we have a couple trap blocks, we have our backside cutoffs, and then we have a couple kick outs. That's what we're trying to do from our sideline return. So getting into our front side, all right, our double team, we have our postman and we have our driver. So that's how we define the two different terms. Okay, our P is the postman, our D is the driver. Essentially what we want to do is our postman, his aiming point is to be inside eye of his man. So he wants to get squared up and be inside eye of his man. He's going to make first contact, all right? I'll get into later of how we block after contact and the different techniques and things like that. On the double team, it's not necessarily true because it is two guys blocking. But the postman, okay, once he makes contact, his main job is to stone the guy if he can. If he can't, it's to force him to choose an avoidance direction. If he avoids towards the driver, okay, the driver's job is to work shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, all right, and stop this man and then continue to swing his hips and get to the edge to drive him inside, all right? In this diagram, we're returning the ball to the right. All right, so as the driver, he's going to stack behind and outside, essentially a 1-by-1, and he's going to allow and he's going to react to what that kickoff coverage man does. If he avoids to him, he's just going to close it. He's going to slam the door shut. He's going to work to the hip, and he's going to drive that guy inside. Same return to the right now. If we get kickoff avoid inside, okay, he's going to piggyback, and he's going to come underneath of the postman, and he's now going to pick up that guy, and he's going to drive him inside from that position, and the postman is simply going to wheel and add extra support to drive inside and away from the return. All right, so that's really the biggest thing of what we coach on the double team is that postman getting square with slight inside leverage. Okay, he wants to slow that guy down and force a reaction. The drive man is going to react to whichever coverage lane this guy chooses. If he chooses inside, he's going to piggyback and come underneath. If he chooses front side, he's going to slam the door shut, and they're going to work to drive him inside. Another kind of master's level is once you get these guys, it happens most often if you get a front side avoid and you can slam this shut and your postman is able to control him one-on-one after you've got movement, you can now late leak your drive man off to the kicker or to the safety, and he can really be that touchdown block. So that's another thing that we talk about as far as the second phase of the double team, of once you have him under control, you can now leak and get an extra blocker and extra numbers at the point of attack. The second,
a quick question for you, and you might be getting to it a little bit later. But like, what depth do you typically set your doubles up at?
So for the double, it's, again, it goes back to, and I should have mentioned it when I talked about the kick. So what we do, or what I do, is I watch and I chart where their coverage team is when the ball is caught. So if they're catching the ball and they're consistently at the 30-yard line when we're catching it, I'm going to set our guys at the 30-yard line. If they're getting deeper than that, we're going to have to drop deeper. If they're slower than that and they're at the 35, we may not have to drop as far. Because the reason we're doing that is we want to try to time it up to making our block roughly the same time the ball is being caught, because we don't want to have to hold that block for too long or not into the block when the returner is running into us. So our base rule is the 30-yard line, but that does change somewhat between game plan. If we get a kicker who's kicking it to the 5 but with really good hang time, you know, we may drop a little deeper or shorter. You know, if he's into the end zone goal line area on a low hang time, we may not be dropping to the 30 either. So we kind of base it upon where that coverage team is. But base, we use the 30-yard line from day one.
Okay. And that's for doubles and single blocks as well?
For the most part. So our base rule is the double team is going to be at the 30. Our trap block is going to be at the 25. We actually have 2 trap blocks. So the second trap block will be at the 20. And our backside blocks are going to create essentially a cone where we go 30, 27, and 25. So they're creating a little bit of a cone on the backside. And then our back end, so our 3 players involved in the back end, they're going to be set off of where the returner is. The first guy is going to be 7 yards off the returner. Our next guy will be 10 to 12. And then our next guy is about 15 to 18.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the next part on front side blocks is going to be the trap block. So the trap block in this diagram, we have our postman, we have our drive man on the double team. What our trapper is going to do within our scheme, there's 2 really big things that he needs to do. The first one is he's going to be the aiming point for our postman. So his job is to actually line up directly over top of the man that we are going to double team. So he's going to get foot to foot, helmet stripe to helmet stripe, straight up on the guy that we're going to double. But he's going to be 5 yards deeper than where we determine that double team's going to happen. So our base rules is he's going to be on the 25-yard line, straight up on top of the guy that we're double teaming. That gives our postman, who's our front line guy, a great aiming point to know, hey, I get to his inside shoulder and I turn around, I'm going to be in relatively good position when I turn and I see where my double team guy is. It also helps the drive man to understand, all right, I need to get here, and that's going to put me in relatively good position off of my drop, so now I can react to wherever that guy takes me. So that's his first rule, is he wants to top the guy that we're double teaming 5 yards deeper than where that double team's going to happen. Then the next part of his actual block, that he wants to try to hide behind the double team, and he's going to take an inside-out angle, and he's just going to trap on his man. The way we have it set up, by him topping that man, he already has a great inside-out angle. He just needs to try to hide and disguise himself as long as possible and be patient. As he goes to attack, and this is the same kind of contact principles that I talk about and I teach for everyone except for the double team essentially is as you close space and eat up space, you want to widen and quicken your feet. What this allows you to do is you play with a good base. It allows you to move laterally, and you want to take that angle to essentially the inside V of the neck to the near armpit so that my face mask is right there, and that creates that good inside out angle, and I'm going to have good body position. Okay, I'm going to widen and quicken my feet, being able to change direction and go wherever I need to go. And I always want to be constantly moving towards the blocker. I do not want to absorb on kickoff return, especially as the trap guy, because I'm on the front side of the return. If I absorb and get driven back, I'm getting driven back into the return. We actually have two of these guys. So our second trap blocker, his job is to be 5 yards behind our primary trap. So we have a primary and a secondary trap blocker, but their jobs are essentially the same. Our secondary trapper is just going to align 5 yards behind the first trapper, and now he's going to work and get to his man, who'll be the next guy over coming from this way. So that's how we have our trap blockers involved. You can do outside traps, and one of our kick out blocks, I call it a kick out, is actually very similar. So if you have your defender out there, you can top and you can outside trap block as well. We've done that. If we wanted to double someone who was further inside, we've actually set it up where we trap block out instead of trap blocking inside. I just call that a kick out rather than a trap. Again, they're very similar. It's not really, it's just kind of what I call it. If you're going inside, it's trap. If you're going outside, it's kick out. There's not really much of a difference. Backside cutoff, when you talk about it, it's going to be the simplest of blocks to make. But when you physically do it, it's probably one of the hardest. So the best coaching point that I've kind of been able to find, and maybe someone on this call has some better verbiage for it, but I always talk about influencing the man inside or covering up the man inside of your blocking responsibility. So if I need to block this guy that's running downfield as I take my drop, okay, we have our designated landmark, our designated distance that we need to drop depending upon the type of kick we're getting. So I want to get to over top of that man, then what we call flip pedal settle at the bottom of our drop. So we're going to flip open our hips. Okay, we're going to roll over our inside shoulder. So if I was this person, right, this is my right shoulder, this is my left shoulder. My left shoulder is inside, so I want to open that shoulder to get back to square. And now I'm pedaling back with my right foot and my left foot in that direction. So I want to open towards the middle of the field. I'm going to take 2 to 3 pedal steps. Then I'm going to settle and drive back towards my man, utilizing that inside out leverage that I've created by influencing and getting over top of the man inside. Again, the biggest thing that we like to talk about is influence and get over top so that I create that inside out leverage. I know a lot of times what I was doing earlier in my career was just, hey, just get inside. So our guys would drop to here, but as they would attack, because this guy knows where the ball is, he can see the returner, we end up squared up. And we don't do a good job of maintaining that inside leverage that we initially created with our drop. So by talking about getting over top of the man inside, if he's also reacting to the ball, I now have to run further, but I know I'm definitely those 5 yards or so inside of that guy where I can build my leverage. So we always talk about influencing the man inside, getting over top of the man inside. And then again, as you attack after your flip pedal settle, widening, quickening your feet, I'll talk about the after contact and the right as contact is happening, how we want our hands and our feet and kind of what we're going to do after that.
Coach Frantz, when you're talking your backside cutoff blocks there, You mentioned your cone earlier that you're setting up. I think you said the 30, the 27, and the 25.
Yeah.
Will you teach those backside guys to pass off late twists because you have them staggered like that, or do you have them chase them?
Yeah, so our day one rules are going to be pass it off and take who becomes. If we have a team that's doing a lot of twisting or something like that, or we just feel game plan wise that we want to lock it, we can lock it. But day one, we are going to pass it off, and that's why we do have the staggeredness of it. So if we had 3 guys here, it would essentially look like that so that we can pass off any twists that may come from up here. So if we were to get that type of thing, that cone allows us to see it, and we're working on different levels. Or if we get a late twist where we stay on and this guy just works over top, because we're underneath here, we're on different levels, we can come underneath. Now that's not a great situation, but we do have the ability to at least get a body on a body. Maybe we drive him past the returner or something. So it gives us a little bit of wiggle room by being staggered like that to also work things out.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. So then our back end, for us, it's the backside tight end, what we call the wedge captain, and then our off returner. So we call it our back end box, but it's not really a box. I mentioned it to you guys earlier of just kind of where they are. So if the returner, we're catching the ball here, we have our wedge captain, we have our off returner, and then we have our backside tight end. So that's kind of the box that we talk about. This is at 7 yards. He's 10 to 12. He's 15 to 18. And they're all going to work some form of kick out block. And as we get to the kick out block, again, it's just taking that good inside out angle. A lot of times it's going to be coming behind, especially that backside tight end. It's almost like another trap block. I mentioned earlier, trap blocks and kickouts. I call it kick out when we're kicking out to the sideline. I call it trap when we're kicking in towards the middle of the field. So as we kick out, okay, he can still potentially hide behind this double team. Comes with good inside out leverage, wide and quick in his feet, make contact. He wants to always have his face on the upfield shoulder of the man. Okay, the number one thing we want to do is force them to try to win with speed and run around us. We cannot get beat inside or across our face. All right, that's the one thing we want to protect against. So as the kick out blocks, again, very similar to the trap blocks. A lot of times these are coming from more space than what the trap block is. So for us, they're a little bit more athletic guys, offensive guys that are usually used to playing in space. It was 2 of our tight ends this past year. They did a really, really good job at it. So that was who we used at those positions. Then after contact, we can talk pre-contact and the body position that we want to be. I mentioned it a little bit of we always want to have inside out leverage. So as we attack on an angle, we're always going towards our face mask to that inside via the neck, near number area. We're going to take our upfield shoulder, and that should be punching through their armpit. And then our downfield shoulder should be right on their sternum. So that gives us the inside out angle, the inside out aiming points. And the other thing we talk about is our feet. So as we make that contact, whichever foot is our inside foot, we want to have that up. We want our soft shoulder to be our downfield shoulder to force them to run around us. Okay, so in this first picture here, okay, we're coming to kick out this direction. This guy is going to win with speed. This is ideally what we want after contact. Okay, very rarely do you make contact and you just drive that guy on the same angle that you found him. You know, that very rarely happens. It very rarely happens where you come and get this guy and you knock him straight on the ground. You know, most of the time they're going to be on their feet. They're going to attempt some type of counter or some type of avoidance move. So we want to widen and quicken our feet on an inside out angle. As we punch in this diagram, our left foot would be up. Our left arm would go into the armpit. we would give our soft shoulder to the right, wanting him to run around like he does in this diagram. Now, this type of block, as he runs around, I call this a low screen. We use this on kickoff return as well as punt return. So all kind of open field, downfield blocks we call pretty much the same, just for, again, keeping it as simple as possible and having them understand what techniques they need to use at certain times. So if this guy is running towards your soft shoulder, he's going where you want him to go. All right, I have my hand in his armpit. All right, he wants to run around me. That's fine. All I'm going to do is turn and pivot, and I'm just going to try to widen him and take him vertically past the returner. All right, so he wants to go that way. That's fine. Our returner's in here. I know I have the presence of myself in between the defender and the ball carrier. All I need to do is just turn and do everything I can to widen and drive him vertically past this return. Now, the other instance that you get is a guy who's going to try to cross face. All right, a lot of times this is taken away if you take a good angle. He has no ability to cross your face unless he truly stops and has to redirect. So if you take a great angle, most of the time you're going to get the avoidance to the direction that you want. If he does try to cross your face, I call this a high screen. So with my left hand in his near armpit here and my left foot up, what I want to do is I want to extend my left arm and lock it out. All right, if I can lock out the arm, it's going to turn these guys' shoulders parallel, and now I can work to drive him vertically up the field. All right, if I'm unable to lock my arm, but I have my foot inside and I continue to drive this foot forward, I'm going to be able to drive him on a 45-degree angle back towards where the ball was kicked from, hopefully allowing enough time and space for our returner to make a cut. All right, we want to do everything we can to maintain body contact, keep a body on a body. If they cross our face, okay, number one thing is try to lock out our arm to get his shoulders turned. If we get his shoulders turned, we can now take our backhand and put it right on his hip, and we can drive him straight up the field. If we don't get the lockout, okay, we need to focus our feet to getting our left foot forward so that we can try to flatten this and drive him anywhere on a 45. All right, the worst thing that happens is we get totally beat when we spin like a top. We just get spun into the ground. Now he's got a direct beeline to the returner. All right, so that's why the angle that we take inside out, okay, that aiming point of the inside via the neck to near number, okay, widen and quicken our feet to create that base to allow us to move back and forth. And as we come into that position, we already have our left foot or our inside foot up. So he's going through our hard shoulder already. All right, so those are kind of the main blocks. And again, I use these for punt return as well. So if someone tries to cross my face on punt return, right, it just transitions into a high screen where I want to do everything I can to get that inside arm locked and drive him vertical back down. So those are the two different types of blocks and our reactions after contact of how we're going to have to execute those blocks. Practice organization-wise, we do it in pods. So what we've done is we'll split the field in half. We'll put the front side and the back side on one half of the field, and we'll put our back end on the other half of the field. We'll have our kickers from the 50 just short kicking balls to the returner. So now we can set up the box, and then we can also send guys to essentially block and kind of read the kickouts. I did not totally prepare for COVID 3 months ago, so I do not have our practice film downloaded. I only have our game film, so I can't show this. Hopefully I can verbally describe it well enough so you guys have an idea of what we're doing. So that's kind of what we do is we split the field in half. We'll have our back end on one end where our kickers are kicking to the returner. we build the box, and we can work our kickouts. You can do different things with those kickouts. You can work twists with the bags. You know, the guys that are running down, holding bags, you can work twists. You can work, one's the contain guy, one's a safety. You're having to sort out who the most dangerous is. So you can do a handful of different things there. On the opposite side, we have our front side and our back side. They will alternate. So we'll go with the front side first, where we work our double team, and there are 2 trap blocks. And then we'll have our backside go next, where they work to get inside and in front, and then just work back after they flip pedal settle. We also do circuit blocking, where we condense this entire thing, and everybody works on widening, quickening back to their block, and then executing either a high screen or a low screen. So we'll do that in a circuit mentality. We do have some other drills that we provide in that circuit, blocking circuit, but that's another way we practice the actual contact phase, where you're not actually doing all of the running. So you'll just match guys up. You just have an offense versus a defense. You just have him run right down the line. We work on our drop. Okay, so we have another guy here. So we have our drop, where we're getting inside and in front, over top, and influencing that next guy. Now I can work back. And there's actually a progression to that. So we'll do different progressions where we'll start them literally in position. So their hands are fit into the block. Then we'll back them up 5 steps where they have to widen and quicken into it. And then we'll work the whole phase where they have to drop, flip pedal settle, and then go block. So we'll do that in a progression in the spring and early in training camp as well. And then full field phases. I have put a diagram in here just so I can draw it for you guys to be a little bit better. So we'll line up, and we'll do this for the first part of our kickoff return period. So we have our scout team over here. We'll work our front side first. So we'll send down the guys that are being blocked by the front side. All right. And what we do, so we'll work our double team, will get their drop, and they'll go. We'll have our trap man work his drop and take his man. We have our second trap work his drop and take his man. And again, from the double team, from the traps, from all that stuff, I mean, we've trapped the 4, or excuse me, we've doubled the 4, we've doubled the 3, we've doubled the 5. You know, you can alternate depending on what you're getting. You can just tell your double team, hey, we're double teaming 5. And then the trap knows they're going to trap 6 and trap 7. You know, hey, we're going to double team 3. Then our trap guys know they're going to trap on 4 and trap on 5. You know, it's all about creating angles. It's all about finding who their best players are, getting those matchups. If there's the fish that you want to attack, you know, finding that. So just determining where you want to do your double, where you want to put the traps and all that stuff. So for us, everything's based off of the double. So we know we're going to double, and then we're going to trap the next 2 guys inside of the double. So we'll work our front side that way. What we also do is we'll 2-whistle it. So we'll do the first whistle where the guys run down, however we want to do it. All right, so they run down. At the bottom of the drops, I'll blow the whistle. These guys will freeze, and we can talk about how we're either in good alignment or in bad relationship or wherever we should get better. Because a lot of times this happens on the backside, all right? They say, hey, that's the guy that I need to influence. They run to where he lined up, but as they run down, they see the ball kicked. He's now 5 yards further inside. So they just ran to this point in the middle of the field. They didn't see who they needed to influence. So now you can tell them, hey, second whistle, you need to be 5 yards over because look at the angle that he took. All right, so that's the second phase of it. We work our backside and the guys that they're blocking. So then they work this way with all the guys that they're going to block off of there. And then we work our back end, saying the returner caught the ball down here on the hash. Our off returner will be inside. about 7 yards in front. Our wedge captain will be outside 10 to 12. And then our backside tight end will be on the inside 15 to 18. The way we do this, he's a straight kick out. He always has the guy first outside of the double team. And then these two guys play off of the most dangerous. So he takes most dangerous. He takes whoever is left over, whether that's lead through and get them, or it's fold underneath and get them here. I've done a lot of different things as far as blocking schemes and all that. I've done it where we leave 3 guys on the backside go, and we take this guy as an extra pull-through player, just cleaning up trash. I've been one of the guys where you do the reverse handoff here, right? You do that all the time, and that allows you to not block these last 3 because they have to keep 3 back there to at least keep it honest. If they don't, you can just fake it and keep it out the naked side, all right, and try to beat them down the edge. I've done middle return. I've done a lot, but really kind of just our general philosophy of who we are is sideline, and then we have a counter off of it. I do have a couple clips. I think I have 3 clips here just of what we've done throughout the year. We got much better on this unit as the year went on. So we did not start great at all. I think a little bit of it, not a little bit, I think a lot of it is on me for poor personnel as well as doing too much, making certain tweaks every single week, just doing some different things. Towards the end of the year, we got more consistent with what we were doing, and we, to be honest, got a lot more reps at doing it. We were very young, especially on special teams, played a lot of freshmen. So as I look at this picture, I think there's 6 freshmen on the field. So played a lot of freshmen. So obviously as the year went on, they got much better at it. In this diagram, this play, you're going to see what we did on our trap here. So our 2 trap guys, they actually switched. So the team we're playing here, whether it was a natural twist or a penetrate and play off of type of thing. So what we did is we allowed our deeper man to take the penetrator because he was there first. And then our second trapper was able to take the guy who was left over, who was folding over top on the twist. Our double team, so they actually drop the guy out from the double team. He becomes a linebacker safety type player. We leave the double team on. You'll see that our frontline guy does a really nice job on him, and our backside guy is really just kind of looking for help. He keeps bouncing between, trying to figure out what this guy is going to do, how he's going to play off of it. He doesn't actually really do too much. Trying to think what else. You'll see a poor job here by our backside cutoff guy. He gets his drop. He doesn't flip pedal settle, get his eyes around quick enough, and he gets run by. And then our other trapper here, the guy taking that first penetrator, he just has to be more stout when he transitions to a low screen and drive him down vertical instead of low screening and allowing this shoulder to stay soft and get looped around. You'll see a great job by our back end players with the wedge captain and our backside tight end. You'll see them come across. They both do a great job of winding, quickening their feet on a great angle, the inside out contact, and play it off of that. I know I just talked a lot about it, but I know the more you rewind and play on these Zoom calls, the choppier it gets. So I'm going to try to eliminate as much of that as I can by talking about all that stuff first. Then I'll play it a couple times for you guys. So like I mentioned, our backside cutoff guy, all right, he's at his depth. Could be a little bit further inside as the guy inside is there, all right, but his biggest thing is he doesn't flip around quick enough. He's lazy on his flip. He doesn't pedal, and now he goes here, and the guy just beats him with speed, all right? And then here, our second trapper, our our secondary trapper, as he makes contact, okay, he allows this guy to work vertical through him and actually bend into it rather than being more forceful and just driving him straight down the hash. I'd love for our returner to be able to squeeze through this and keep his eyes up, because if he does keep his eyes up, he'll probably score. But again, we created too much traffic for him, so it just wasn't a clean picture for him coming through this hole. You know, right here, you wish he'd be able to see it and kind of keep his balance and stay straight. It's him versus the kicker. And I'd like to think our returner can beat the kicker. But again, we didn't clear enough hole. We didn't have great enough technique where we muddied the picture for him. He's a little bit off balance. He can't see. He doesn't have great vision because of that. And he ends up cutting it back into a fold player who's unblocked. So on this one, you're going to see poor job by our trap guy setting the point. He actually screws our double team by setting it on the guy inside of the guy we need to double team. It's a great job by our drive man of playing underneath and getting to the man he needs to block. I'd love for him to not just throw his shoulder and keep his feet and actually run through him and just drive him vertical down the hash. But he does a really good job of being able to play off of the mistake of our trapper who set the double on the wrong player. You'll see another good job by the back end, okay, on their kick-out blocks. It's a better job by our backside cutoff players. I'd like to see them try to lock out that arm and drive their guys more vertical, but they do all maintain contact, and they end up driving them laterally across the field, and they give us a shot. And then really the biggest thing is I wish our returner, different kid on this one, I wish he was a freshman back there for the first time. I wish he could have seen this a little bit better, because there does open up a seam here. All right, so right here, okay, again, our guy is too wide as far as the drive man. He needs to be where our trap guy is, right? This is where he needs to be. But he does a nice job of figuring out. He comes underneath, okay, and he does make the block. And then on the backside, you can see a nice job by our backside guys getting inside, covering up their guys. The back end comes across and does a nice job kicking out and creating a seam for us, all right? I wish this kid would just see it and trust it and go. All right, I know he sees a little bit of color right here, but we actually get an extra block. So this is supposed to be the postman of our double team. He realized that he just got run by. He actually does a no-no, something I coach not to do, which is never, ever turn around and look back at the returner. Because what generally happens when you turn around and look at the returner is you run right into him. So I always talk about keep your eyes forward. All right, you lose your man, just climb and go find someone else. But he actually does kind of recover, and he turns around and ends up helping our kick-out block. So from a scheme standpoint of what these guys were doing, they were trying to play tight off of our double team and get vertical back through the seam. Our backside tight end, who is a tight end and is used to seeing this, he just logs it, all right? So he knows he can't kick this guy out, so he comes across and he ends up just logging this, and then we get help from the postman who gets double minuses for missing his man and then also turning around and running backwards. But he does get help, and we're able to kind of seal this off just a little bit too late, where we scared our returner from being able to get through that hole. And this is just the last one here. You'd like to see better communication between the two returners. The way we do it is our primary returner, he owns every single ball that he can get to. He did not make this call here. Okay, he was not vocal enough for this guy to hear it. So, again, they kind of run into each other. They do catch it. We get it caught. It's a great job by our trap block here. We had a decent job by the first trap block. He gets beat across his face because he lunges too much. But then we have good position by our backside cutoff guys where they're both inside of the guys they need to go get. And then it's coming off of the screen. All right, we get our double. He tries to avoid to the drive man side. He closes it off and slams the door there. All right, so it is a nice job. And then my favorite part of this play is going to be really just how everybody stays on their block and they continue to go. You know, this, if I rewind it just a little bit here. All right, you guys can see the scoreboard at the top. This is our big rivalry game. They just took the lead. There's about 3 minutes left. Okay, we actually get a big return here, set up the game-winning field goal with about a minute or so left, and defense does their job. All right, but again, just how we kind of set it up, different schemes of what we have. Really just try to give you pieces, and the way I've kind of designed it is hopefully with doing all that stuff, you know, the different blocks, the different types of things, you guys can do it however you want. You know, you can set the double wherever, you can set the trap wherever, you can set the kick out wherever. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. And now we just got to choose who we double in this week. All right, that sets the traps, that sets this, sets that. So just trying to keep it simple, like I mentioned early on of, hey, this is what we're going to do. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of who do we want to double, and this is how we set up after that. So that's all I got. You guys have questions? I know a couple guys jumped in during that with questions, which was great. Probably did a lot more talking than I wanted to as far as being conversationalist and all that, but are there any questions now?
No, that was awesome. In terms of like the fair catch rules, like where do you give your returners specific spots of, you know, when to call fair catch, when not to, like what is that for you?
Yeah, so for me, really if there's a kick outside the numbers, I tell them to fair catch it. If they go the numbers away from where we're returning and that off returner's catching it, he's going to fair catch it. Even the guy into the boundary, I try to have, because if they do kick it into the boundary, he's got to do a great job getting back inside to get in phase with the kick out blocks and all that stuff. It's something that we rep. That's more of a game plan thing. I think it's more dependent upon the height of the kick and stuff like that when you get it in that kick side corner. But that's kind of the biggest thing that we do there is really it's if they kick opposite of where we're going and that off returner's catching it out near those numbers or wider, he's going to fair catch that. Even if it's, you know, if he feels like he can't get back across, he's going to fair catch it. It's dependent upon the kid. I don't give them specific rules unless it's, hey, numbers, you're definitely fair catching. If you're inside of that.
You don't have any kind of a just call for like a cross kick outside the hash or anything like that? Okay.
No, I'm kind of – and again, I've always been a little bit more aggressive with that. Like, I'd rather say screw it and force you to play coverage. You know, you never know what's going to happen. It only takes one play to pop. You don't know which one it's going to be. And to me, if you fair catch it, I know you're gambling a little bit, but you're allowing those guys, they have to play for different angles now where that ball is. They have to cover from different things. So I'd rather be a little bit more aggressive and put the trust and the faith in my guys to be able to get over there. More times than not, they come through for me and they do a nice job.
Awesome. Anybody else there have anything?
Yeah, I got another question here. Coach, talking about your practice structure, you mentioned your pod work in the spring and early in training camp. And then you also showed how you'll bring them down in groups during the season. How much of that pod work or bringing down in groups do you do throughout the entire season, as opposed to bringing down 11 on 11?
So I do the 3 groups, front side, back side, back end. We do the whole year. So it gets them essentially full speed reps, but they're not doing it rep after rep after rep. Because we'll go full speed with the front side, full speed with the back side, full speed with the back end, and then we'll mix in the 2s, and then we'll do like a full speed, full unit look with the 1s and 2s. So they got their little bit of pod work, then they get a full practice rep, and that's generally all I want to do. We will mix in, we call it coach speed. So it's essentially 3/4 speed, stop when you're contacted. That's where we do a lot of the coaching. We do that more as those 3 groups. So we'll do a coach speed where they 3/4 speed. All right, we'll do the double whistle on that one. Then we'll go full speed, that group, make your whole block. Then we'll cycle around the whole group, and then they get 1, sometimes 2 as a full unit. So you only done really 1 full speed, full cover, but you've gotten 3 to 5 reps of doing it.
And then throughout the season, how often will you break the field in half, where you've got your front side and your back side on one half, and then your back end on the other half? Or is that strictly just spring and training camp?
We've done it a couple times. Mainly we do it our bye week when we try to refocus back on fundamentals. So it's definitely spring, definitely training camp. We did it during the bye week. I don't know if we did it at all in game week this year, but I have in the past.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so if nobody has anything else here, really appreciate your time, Greg. That was awesome. Really like how you explained the double team in particular, and a couple of other things too. Gave me a lot to think about. So again, man, appreciate your time. Thanks for taking, and hope everything's going well for you, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. Again, I appreciate it. Again, I haven't been able to really do much of this stuff, kind of been cooped up working on my own and all that stuff during quarantine. So it's definitely nice to be able to get out and do this kind of stuff. So